When the abandoned ship signaled the ground, a mechanic unearthed something incredible. The sun had long disappeared behind the rust-colored dunes of Xylar. 9. Leaving the mining colony bathed in the cold glow of artificial lights. Taran Voss wiped grease from his hands onto his worn coveralls, squinting at the flickering monitors of the salvage bay. He had been awake for nearly 20 hours, repairing a half-broken drone that refused to lift more than a few inches above the sand. The colony was a harsh place. Supplies were low, morale even lower. The miners muttered about leaving, about how this planet was a dead end. But Taran loved machines too much to care. They were predictable, fixable, and sometimes they spoke to him in ways humans never could. As he twisted the final screw on the drone, a strange sound echoed through the bay, a soft, rhythmic pulse. Taran frowned. His instruments beeped in protest, and the monitors lit up with a signal that did not match any pattern he had ever seen. "What in the?" he muttered, leaning closer. The pulse was faint but distinct, coming from deep beneath the red sands outside the colony. A buried ship, old and abandoned, was sending a signal. Not just a distress call, it felt deliberate, intelligent, almost alive. The other mechanics didn't notice. They were busy arguing over lunch rations and broken conveyor belts. Taran's curiosity, however, had been ignited. He had heard stories about old ships buried under Xylar. 9. Most were centuries old, long before the colony had even been founded. Few had survived the storms, and none of the expeditions to recover them had ever returned intact. But now, this ship was calling. Taran's fingers danced over the console, pulling up old maps and scans. The readings were strange, energy fluctuations and patterns that resembled a heartbeat. It was unlike anything in the colony's records. Whoever, or whatever, had left it buried here must have known it would be found eventually. His supervisor, a grizzled veteran named Corin, noticed the monitors and frowned. "Taran, don't touch that. You know better than to dig at old ruins. Ships like that are dangerous. Collapses, traps, radiation. You could get yourself killed." Taran straightened, his eyes still glued to the pulsing signal. "I know what I'm doing. I fixed worse than this, and it's calling us, Corin. It's asking for someone to come." Corin shook his head. "Curiosity gets people killed, Voss. Don't say I didn't warn you." But Taran had already made up his mind. That night, after the other mechanics had gone to sleep, he returned to the salvage bay. He brought with him a bag of tools, spare drone parts, and a portable scanner. The desert wind howled outside, carrying fine red dust that clung to his skin and clothes. He activated the drones he had repaired earlier. They hovered beside him, blinking with lights like mechanical eyes, ready to assist. Taran had spent months modifying them, making them tough enough to withstand sandstorms and strong enough to lift heavy debris. Tonight, they would serve as both scouts and lifelines. As he approached the coordinates, the sand beneath his boots grew strangely warm. The monitors in his hand beeped faster, the signal growing stronger. Finally, the outline of a massive, half-buried ship emerged from the dunes. Its hull was scarred, battered by centuries of storms, yet it had a strange elegance, a design unlike anything human. Taran stopped for a moment, letting the sight sink in. "It's beautiful," he whispered. The drones buzzed around him, scanning the surface. The ship was enormous, easily the size of a small colony building. Its metal glimmered faintly under the pale light of Xylar. 9's moons. Strange glyphs were etched along the hull, patterns that seemed to shimmer and move when he looked at them. He activated the portable scanner. The readings made him pause. Energy readings spiked and fell in a rhythm that almost matched his own heartbeat. There were life signs, or something like life signs. Inside the ship, Taran knelt and dug his hands into the sand, removing years of accumulation. The drones hovered nearby, their lights casting eerie shadows on the hull. Slowly, methodically, he cleared the area around a massive entrance. The door was sealed with a strange force field, visible as a faint shimmer in the air. "Not so fast," he muttered. The field hummed with energy, responding to his movements. He had seen similar fields before in old tech, but nothing this advanced. Still, he was not a man to give up. With careful adjustments, he connected his portable power source to the field's control panel. Sparks flew, wires melted, and for a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft click, the field dissolved, leaving a path inside. Taran stepped forward, his pulse quickening. The interior was dark, cold, and silent. The air smelled faintly metallic, like a storm had passed through iron. The walls were lined with strange panels that seemed to pulse gently with light. The corridors twisted and turned, organic in design, yet mechanical. It was a place alive with secrets. Taran's drones hovered ahead, their lights sweeping the darkness. His scanner beeped wildly. Something moved, or something was moving. Then a soft projection flickered on a wall. Images of a long-lost crew appeared, suspended in stasis. Their faces were human-like in shape, but unfamiliar in detail. Elongated skulls, pale skin, eyes closed as if in sleep. "What happened to you?" Taran whispered. He ran his fingers over a console, pressing buttons cautiously. Holographic logs flickered to life. He saw scenes of the ship's crew working tirelessly, conducting experiments on energy sources beyond human understanding. Something had gone wrong, terribly wrong. A sudden noise echoed through the corridor. Taran froze. The drones blinked rapidly, their sensors alert. The ship shuddered, lights flickering. It was awakening. The panels along the walls moved slightly, almost like a heartbeat in metal. Taran's heart raced. He had expected an old, dead ship. Not this. It was alive, responding to him. And then he noticed something extraordinary. A section of the hull projected a star map, pointing far beyond human-settled space. A path, a destination, and a message encoded in symbols he did not understand, yet felt strangely familiar. He stepped back, scanning the logs. Among the alien text, he found something remarkable. A faint signature. A message left intentionally for humans, hidden within the alien systems. Someone had anticipated human discovery. The realization hit him. This was not just a lost ship. This was a bridge, a challenge, a warning, and perhaps an invitation. Taran knew he should stop, retreat to the colony, and report his findings. But curiosity, stubbornness, and the thrill of discovery pushed him forward. He activated the drones, instructing them to map the interior. As he moved deeper, the corridors twisted in impossible ways, gravity shifting subtly, lights responding to his presence. The ship seemed to test him, to judge him. Every step brought new wonders. Rooms filled with machines that pulsed like hearts, panels that displayed information in languages older than humanity. Hours passed. Taran felt exhaustion creeping in, but he pressed on. And then he found the main chamber. It was vast, circular, and suspended in a strange, blue-tinted light. At its center floated a crystalline device, radiating energy in waves that resonated through his chest. The alien crew in stasis surrounded it, as if the device was the reason for their survival, or their doom. Taran reached out, cautiously. The device responded, sending a pulse through the chamber that made him stagger. The holographic crew flickered, reacting to him. The ship was alive, aware, and communicating. For the first time, Taran felt both awe and fear. He realized that what he had unearthed was not just a ship, but a sentient entity, a remnant of a civilization far beyond human reach, and it had chosen him to witness its secret. A faint voice echoed in his mind, not words, but meaning. The message was clear. "You are ready. Follow." Taran swallowed hard. He knew that leaving now meant abandoning the greatest discovery in human history. But venturing further meant stepping into the unknown, into dangers he could not yet imagine. He looked at the star map, the alien crew, and the pulsing device. He made a choice. One step forward, and his life, and perhaps humanity itself, would change forever. And with that step, Taran Voss began the journey that no human had ever taken before. Taran stepped cautiously into the glowing chamber. his boots echoing against the metal floor. The crystalline device at the center pulsed rhythmically, sending waves of light across the walls. The energy it radiated made the hair on his arms stand on end. Each pulse seemed to thrum with a heartbeat, not mechanical, but alive. The alien crew in stasis floated silently in transparent pods, their forms pale and delicate. They seemed almost peaceful, though the logs had hinted at the chaos that had overtaken the ship centuries ago. Taran swallowed hard. It was one thing to hear about ancient civilizations. It was another to see the remnants of one in a chamber that seemed alive. He activated his drones. The lights swept over the crystalline device, scanning its surface. The readings were off the charts. The energy pattern was unlike anything Taran had seen in his life, or in any human records. It wasn't dangerous yet, but it was powerful, perhaps dangerously so. Taran knelt and touched a panel near the device. Instantly, the room hummed louder. Lights danced across the walls, forming symbols that swirled and twisted before him. They seemed to respond to his movements, as if the ship was aware of his presence. "Hello?" he whispered. "Can you understand me?" The air shifted, warmer now, almost as if it were breathing. A soft vibration coursed through Taran's chest, and a holographic projection flickered to life. It was a map of stars, precise and complex, showing regions far beyond human knowledge, constellations he had never seen, routes across space that humans had never charted. But then, the ship's systems shifted again. Doors closed with hydraulic clicks, corridors sealed, and the lights pulsed faster. The ship was alive. Not just alive, it was testing him. Taran's heart pounded. He had expected to find a dead vessel, a relic of a civilization lost to time. He had not expected it to wake up, not fully, not aware. The crystalline device projected an image of the alien crew, showing them working tirelessly at consoles and experiments. Taran saw flashes of light, sparks, and chaos. Something had gone wrong. One figure, a tall, graceful alien with elongated limbs, reached out to a panel, and a burst of energy swept through the ship. The logs stopped abruptly. He felt a strange connection, almost as if the ship itself wanted him to understand what had happened. He ran his fingers along the glowing panels, deciphering the simplest patterns: power flows, energy cycles, sequences. Slowly, he realized the ship was trying to communicate. The crystalline device pulsed more rapidly. Lights traced patterns across the room, illuminating symbols embedded in the walls. Taran focused, following the pulses. Somehow, the signals seemed to form words in his mind. Not spoken, but understood. "Help us." The message was simple, clear, urgent. The alien crew had left this ship in stasis, waiting for someone like him, someone capable of understanding, someone human. But why? He glanced at his drones. They hovered obediently, sensing his tension. He activated the scanner to examine the force fields keeping the alien crew suspended. The energy was delicate, almost biological in nature, yet reinforced with alien tech. If tampered with incorrectly, it could collapse instantly, ending the crew's chance at revival. Or worse, killing him. Taran worked carefully, adjusting his tools to interface with the alien console. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and for a tense moment, he feared the ship would reject him. Then, slowly, the energy field stabilized. He had succeeded. The pods began to hum, the stasis system cycling down. The crew inside were not waking yet, but they were stable. Taran stepped back, feeling a surge of pride and fear. This was bigger than anything he had ever imagined. He was no longer just a mechanic on a remote colony. He had become the bridge between a lost civilization and humanity. Then, a sudden alarm sounded. Not mechanical, not human. It was the ship itself. The walls vibrated, and the floor beneath him shifted. The holographic star map flashed wildly, pointing to a set of coordinates far from Xylar. Taran realized the truth. The ship wasn't just abandoned. It had been waiting for someone to activate it, someone to follow its path. It was giving him instructions, pointing the way to a place no human had ever reached. But it was not easy. As he moved toward the ship's exit, a corridor slammed shut behind him. Gravity shifted slightly, making him stumble. The drones buzzed, scanning ahead. A wall of energy appeared, blocking his path. The ship was alive, testing him, controlling him, guiding him, yet also ensuring he could survive the challenges ahead. Terran gritted his teeth. He was a mechanic, not an explorer of alien civilizations, but human ingenuity had gotten him this far. Using spare parts and some improvisation, he constructed a makeshift stabilizer to counter the gravitational shift. Step by step, he advanced, following the pulsing lights of the crystalline device as it guided him. In a larger chamber, he discovered something extraordinary. Hundreds of panels formed a semicircle, each one alive with light and information. The star map projected here was massive, detailing routes to distant systems. But in the center, the crystalline device pulsed more intensely. It was clear it held a key, not just to navigation, but to understanding alien technology. Terran crouched, examining it. His mind raced. Could he figure out how to unlock its secrets? The ship's logs hinted at something incredible, an energy source beyond human comprehension. Technology capable of reshaping colonies, powering entire planets, even creating life-sustaining systems. A sudden noise startled him. From a shadowed corridor, a figure appeared. Terran froze. His scanner picked up faint movement, but it was not human. Something small, mechanical, like a drone, but clearly not built by humans. It hovered, then zipped back into darkness. The ship was alive in more ways than he had imagined. He realized that the ship's AI, or whatever controlled it, was aware of him. It was guiding him, yes, but also watching, and perhaps testing whether humanity was worthy of what lay ahead. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost its meaning inside the alien ship. Terran was exhausted but could not stop. He decoded a sequence of panels, linking the crystalline device to the ship's propulsion and energy systems. Slowly, the ship reacted. Panels rearranged themselves, doors opened, and corridors realigned. It was preparing to move, perhaps even to leave the buried sands of Xylar. 9. Terran's mind raced. If he activated the ship fully, he might gain access to knowledge and technology far beyond human reach. But the risks were enormous. He could destroy the ship, or worse, awaken something dangerous. He hesitated. Then, as he studied the crystalline device, a new holographic projection appeared. It was the alien figure from the logs, reaching out again. But this time, it was not a recording. The figure's eyes opened, and it looked directly at him. Terran stumbled back, heart racing. The alien crew was waking. Slowly, one pod after another began to release energy, bringing the beings out of stasis. They were weak, fragile, but alive. They did not speak, but he could sense their awareness. They were evaluating him, as the ship had. "Okay," Terran whispered. "I don't know what you are, or what you want, but I'm here to help." The crystalline device pulsed again. Lights filled the room, scanning Terran, then the aliens. A subtle vibration ran through his chest, almost like approval. The ship had accepted him. Then the star map flickered once more, focusing on a single system far from any human colony. A route, a path, an invitation. The message was clear: follow, discover, and understand. But beyond that system, dangers awaited. Challenges that had wiped out the alien civilization itself. Terran realized the weight of what he had found. Humanity was being tested, recognized, and perhaps even guided. He was the first human to step into a legacy older than his species. But he was not alone. The alien crew, now semi-conscious, floated in their pods, watching him. The drones hovered faithfully by his side, and the ship itself, the ancient sentient vessel, had begun to hum with new life. Terran knew one thing with certainty: the journey had only just begun. The abandoned ship had signaled the ground, and he had answered. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it, not just for himself, but for humanity. And with a deep breath, he prepared to take the next step, toward the stars, toward the unknown, toward something incredible. Taran Voss had never imagined he would be running through the corridors of an ancient, semi-living alien ship with half-conscious extraterrestrials floating beside him. The ship's lights pulsed with life, its corridors twisting and shifting as if it were breathing. Every step he took echoed with purpose. The vessel seemed to respond to his heartbeat, as though testing whether he was worthy. He glanced at the star map projected across the main chamber. The coordinates pointed to a distant system far beyond human settlements. Beyond it lay the remains of the alien civilization that had built the ship. That, the ship warned, was where danger waited. But the path was clear. Follow the route. Unlock the secrets. Survive. Taran activated his drones. They hummed as their lights swept across the corridors, mapping the constantly changing layout. He had learned quickly. The ship did not allow mistakes. A wrong step could lead to a collapsed floor, an energy trap, or a locked door that might never open again. Just as he adjusted a panel to stabilize the gravity in the hallway, the ship trembled. The sound of metal grinding echoed throughout the chamber, and panels shifted violently. The star map flickered, pointing now to the ship's own engines. It was preparing to move. Taran's pulse quickened. He realized the ship wasn't going to remain buried beneath Xylar B. 9A sands. It was ready to rise, to take him on a journey that no human had ever dared. But he was not alone. Outside the colony, transmissions buzzed through the mining network. Rumors of a signal from an abandoned ship had reached human ears, and not everyone intended to wait politely. A retrieval team had been dispatched, a group of armed opportunists who saw profit, fame, or power. They were close now, and if they reached the ship before Taran, they would not care about the alien crew or the secrets it held. Taran knew he had to move fast. He ran through a twisting corridor, his boots clanging against the metal floor, drones flitting around him. Panels opened and closed, corridors shifted, and gravity altered in small bursts as the ship tested him. Every step required focus. Every breath carried tension. Ahead, a new chamber opened. It was vast, filled with suspended energy conduits that glowed like veins of light. The crystalline device at the center pulsed faster, guiding him toward a control panel. Taran approached cautiously, fingers trembling with anticipation. "This is it," he whispered. "This is the key." Using his drones as stabilizers, he connected a series of wires and improvisational circuits to the alien panel. Sparks flew. The lights pulsed violently. For a moment, the ship's system seemed to reject him. Gravity shifted, doors slammed, corridors realigned. But then, slowly, the systems responded. The crystalline device glowed brighter, and the star map stabilized. The ship was alive, aware, and now accepting his guidance. A low hum vibrated through the corridors as the ship began to rise, slowly at first, shifting the sand above it. Outside, the red dunes trembled as centuries of dust and debris were pushed aside. The colony's comm network erupted with static as alarms sounded. And then, the retrieval team arrived. They landed in a shuttle barely 50 meters from the emerging ship. Armed and impatient, they stormed toward the hull, ready to claim whatever treasure lay inside. Taran realized the human threat was immediate. The ship was alive, but it was not a fighter. It relied on intelligence, control, and adaptability. He ran toward the main airlock, drones buzzing in a protective formation around him. The retrieval team opened fire, plasma rifles scorching the metal floor. But the ship responded. Doors slammed shut, corridors shifted, and sections of the hull expanded, creating barriers between Taran and the intruders. Taran ducked, rolling behind a panel as his drones deflected the shots with small energy shields he had improvised. He could feel the ship guiding him, protecting him, but not holding his hand. He had to think, act, and survive on his own. The retrieval team was clever, but predictable. They split into smaller groups, trying to flank him, but the ship anticipated their movements, closing corridors and forcing them into dead ends. Taran used this to his advantage. He led one group into a chamber where gravity reversed momentarily, sending them tumbling backward. "Not so fast!" he shouted, heart racing. Every moment, the ship taught him something. It tested his wit, his agility, his courage. And through it all, Taran realized something profound. The ship was not just a vessel. It was a teacher, a guardian, and perhaps a judge. Humanity's ingenuity, moral choices, and adaptability were on display. The crystalline device pulsed again, stronger than ever. The holographic star map projected a path to the hidden alien outpost in the distant system. Terran knew that if he reached it, he would gain access to knowledge and technology beyond human reach. But the retrieval team would not stop until they claimed it for themselves. He sprinted toward the engine room, the heart of the ship, where the controls could navigate through space. The aliens, now more conscious, began to assist subtly. One floated near a panel, extending a delicate limb to stabilize a control sequence. Another pulsed energy through the crystalline device, creating a shield that pushed back the retrieval team temporarily. Taran's mind raced. He had to coordinate human ingenuity with alien guidance. It was delicate work. A single mistake could destroy him, the ship, or the alien crew. He relied on instincts honed from years of fixing machines under impossible conditions. Step by step, wire by wire, he activated the navigation system. The ship responded immediately, shifting its structure to reduce mass and stabilize its ascent. Dust and debris flew, illuminating the desert night as it broke free from centuries of burial. Outside, the retrieval team fired relentlessly, but the ship moved too fast, its systems shifting and deflecting attacks. Terran realized something remarkable. The ship was not just alive, it trusted him. It responded to his choices, his courage, his intellect. Humanity, flawed and imperfect, was being recognized. The retrieval team, realizing brute force would not work, sent a small assault unit directly into the ship's interior. Terran and his drones confronted them in a narrow corridor where laser fire sparked off the walls. Improvising with alien panels and energy conduits, he created barriers that slowed their advance, buying precious seconds. "You don't understand," he shouted. "The ship, it's alive. If you damage it, you'll destroy everything." For a moment, the team hesitated, but greed and fear are powerful motivators. One of them lunged toward the crystalline device. Terran reacted instantly. He activated an energy pulse through the conduits, creating a temporary field that pushed the intruder back and sealed the chamber doors. The remaining retrieval members scrambled, confused and outsmarted. Terran's drones guided him through twisting corridors, taking him ever closer to the engine room. The aliens followed silently, trusting him, aware now that he was not a threat. Finally, they reached the main control deck. The engines hummed with energy, ready to propel them into space. Taran activated the sequence. Lights flashed, corridors stabilized, and the star map projected the path to the alien outpost. The ship lifted off the ground, rising above the desert dunes. Below, the retrieval team watched helplessly as the ancient vessel ascended, a ghost of the past moving with purpose and life. Taran felt a surge of triumph and fear. He had survived centuries of neglect, dangers both human and alien, and had gained the trust of a sentient ship. But the journey was far from over. Through the observation window, he saw the stars stretch into lines of light as the ship accelerated. The crystalline device pulsed in harmony with the ship's systems, guiding them toward the hidden alien outpost. Taran realized that whatever awaited there would test him again, perhaps more than anything he had faced so far. Yet for the first time, he felt confident. He had solved puzzles, faced danger, and earned the trust of beings far beyond human comprehension. Humanity had been recognized, and he had proven that courage, ingenuity, and morality could shine even in the most alien of places. Taran looked at the floating alien crew, now more conscious, observing him with quiet curiosity. He smiled. "We're going to find out what all of this really means," he said. The ship's lights pulsed in response. It was alive, aware, and ready to continue the journey. And so, with engines humming, drones buzzing, and the star map guiding them, Terran Voss and the sentient ship moved into the unknown, leaving Xylar, 9, behind. The distant alien outpost awaited, holding secrets, dangers, and incredible discoveries. Taran knew that reaching it would not be easy. Humans and aliens alike had perished before him. But for the first time in his life, he realized something extraordinary. humanity was ready to face the stars. The chase had only begun. The stars stretched endlessly before Terran Voss as the ancient ship moved faster than anything human eyes had ever seen. The crystalline device pulsed steadily, guiding them toward the hidden alien outpost. The alien crew, now partially conscious, floated beside him, silent but aware. Taran felt the weight of their trust. They had relied on him, and he could not let them, or humanity, down. Through the observation windows, the outpost appeared like a ghost against the dark void of space. It was a massive structure orbiting a hollowed moon, half ruined, half preserved by alien technology. Towers and domes rose like skeletal fingers, glowing faintly with residual energy. This had once been a hub of incredible power, a place where the alien civilization had created wonders humanity could barely imagine. Terran guided the ship toward a docking bay, carefully avoiding the broken structures floating in orbit. The retrieval team, somehow having tracked them through the colony's signals, had arrived in a small fleet. They fired warning shots, attempting to intimidate him. "Not this time," Terran muttered, gripping the controls. He activated the ship's defensive systems. Panels shifted to block energy blasts. The ship moved like a living being, dodging attacks, twisting and flexing in space. Drones followed Terran, creating shields of light that deflected incoming fire. The retrieval team shouted over comms, demanding the ship release its secrets. Taran ignored them. He had come too far, survived too much, and earned too much trust to hand this over to those who only sought profit. He docked the ship carefully. The alien outpost's interior was vast, more advanced than anything he had imagined. Holographic projections lit up as the ship connected to the docking bay. Energy flowed like rivers through the walls, powering systems that had lain dormant for centuries. Terran stepped into the main chamber, and the aliens followed, their movements careful, delicate. At the center, a massive device floated above a pedestal. Its surface shimmered with energy, pulsing in harmony with the crystalline device aboard the ship. This, Terran realized, was the heart of the alien civilization's power, a device capable of generating clean energy on a scale unimaginable to humans. It could power entire colonies, terraform worlds, even stabilize dying planets. He approached cautiously, feeling both awe and fear. One wrong touch, one misstep, and centuries of knowledge could be lost forever. He reached out, letting his fingers hover over the device. The crystalline device pulsed in response, almost like a heartbeat, acknowledging his presence. The alien crew watched him, eyes wide with trust and curiosity. For a moment, Terran wondered if he was truly worthy. Humanity had survived on instinct, on courage, and on ingenuity. But could it be trusted with this power? Before he could act further, a warning signal echoed through the chamber. The retrieval team had followed him, boarding the outpost in force. Armed and desperate, they charged toward the device, intent on seizing it. Terran acted instantly. Using the knowledge he had gained from the alien ship, he activated a series of energy barriers and defensive systems. Lights blazed across the chamber, forming invisible walls that blocked the intruders. Gravity shifted in controlled bursts, slowing their movements without harming them. "You don't understand what this is," Terran shouted. "If you touch it, you could destroy everything." Some hesitated, fear and greed warring in their minds. But one charged forward, plasma rifle raised. Terran reacted, connecting a conduit from the crystalline device to a chamber wall. Energy flowed through the corridor, creating a temporary shockwave that pushed the intruder back. The others froze, realizing they could not overpower him. Terran had learned to use the alien technology, but he had also learned something more important. Humans could choose courage, ingenuity, and morality over greed. He approached the device again, this time placing his hands on the energy field surrounding it. He felt the pulse of power, the rhythm of centuries, and the whispers of knowledge left by a civilization far older and wiser than humanity. The aliens began to assist. One extended a delicate limb, connecting to the device and stabilizing its output. Another projected holographic schematics, translating the energy flow into patterns Terran could understand. Slowly, step by step, he began to unlock its secrets. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. Terran learned how to regulate the device, how to channel its energy safely. He realized that humanity had a chance. If they acted wisely, they could use this technology to save colonies, restore dying planets, and explore the stars with tools that had never existed before. The retrieval team watched helplessly, unable to intervene. Terran turned to them, his expression firm but calm. "This is not yours to take," he said. "It belongs to those who will use it wisely, to help humanity, not destroy it." Some nodded, recognizing the truth. Others glared, frustrated but powerless. Terran did not fear them. He had survived centuries of danger, alien tests, and human greed. He had earned the right to be here. Then, the crystalline device pulsed one last time, projecting a holographic star map. This map extended beyond the known systems, revealing hidden outposts, planets with resources, and paths through the stars. Terran realized that the alien civilization had left this as a gift, an invitation for humanity to rise, explore, and survive. He smiled. Humanity had been noticed, recognized, and tested. They had passed. The aliens in the outpost now floated freely, partially awakened, but safe. They observed Terran and the retrieval team with cautious curiosity. Slowly, some began to communicate through gestures, showing that they trusted him. The centuries of isolation were ending, and first contact had begun, not with fear or war, but with recognition and cooperation. Terran looked at the crystalline device, then at the aliens, and finally at the distant stars beyond the observation windows. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "We're ready." The ship hummed in agreement, as if it had been waiting to hear those words. Its corridors shifted gently, aligning with the energy patterns of the outpost. The crystalline device aboard the ship synchronized with the larger device in the outpost, creating a resonance that filled the chamber with light. It was a moment of triumph, not just for Terran, not just for humanity, but for the values that defined them. Ingenuity, courage. Against impossible odds, they had persevered, earning a place among the stars. Terran spent the next hours carefully documenting everything. He knew that this knowledge could change the fate of the colony, the planet, and eventually, the human race. But he also knew that the true challenge would be guiding humanity to use this gift wisely. Outside, the retrieval team finally left, realizing that they could not claim what was not theirs. Terran watched their shuttles disappear into the void. There was no fear in him, only relief. The danger had passed. Humanity had proven itself worthy. The aliens floated closer to him, extending hands, limbs, and gestures of understanding. Terran smiled and nodded, feeling the first real connection between human and alien civilization. Communication was limited, but it was there. Trust had been earned. Finally, he turned to the crystalline device. It pulsed gently, as if inviting him to explore further. Terran realized that this was more than just a source of energy. It was a bridge to knowledge, exploration, and survival. The device could empower humanity to thrive where others had fallen. Terran Voss had answered the signal from the abandoned ship. He had faced the unknown, outsmarted human greed, survived alien tests, and earned the trust of a civilization far beyond human comprehension. And now, with the device and the partially awakened crew, humanity's place among the stars was no longer a dream. It was real. The outpost glowed with the light of possibility. Terran looked at the stars beyond, feeling hope swell in his chest. The journey had been dangerous, unpredictable, and extraordinary. But it had also proven something fundamental. Humanity, with courage, ingenuity, and moral strength, could rise to meet any challenge, no matter how alien or impossible. And somewhere deep within the outpost, the crystalline device pulsed in quiet approval, a heartbeat echoing through the void. Humanity had been noticed. Humanity had been trusted. Humanity had earned its place. Terran smiled one last time, feeling the weight of history and the promise of the future. He had uncovered something incredible. Not just a device, not just a ship, but a legacy. and it was humanity's turn to rise. With a deep breath, he prepared to explore further, to learn, to teach, and to lead. The stars awaited, and humanity was ready. The abandoned ship had called him, and he had answered, and in doing so, the impossible had become possible.